The New York Rangers trade Ryan Lindgren, Jimmy Vesey, and the rights for Hank Kempf to the Avalanche for Juuso Parssinen, Calvin DeHaan, a 2025 conditional second-round pick, and a conditional fourth-round pick as well. Was this a good return for the Rangers? We debate.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1261 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So some breaking news earlier in the day here on Saturday. The Rangers, of course, trading away a couple of veterans, a couple of mainstays. Might be a little bit of a stretch for Vesey, but certainly Ryan Lindgren, a mainstay of Ranger hockey. And if we combine Vesey's two stints with the Rangers, he spent a considerable amount of time in the franchise as well. But the Rangers basically doing what they had to do. I mean, that's the way that I look at it. That's kind of the long and short of it. And I don't mean to downplay, the human side of anything that's going on here, because I like Ryan Lindgren. I like Jimmy Vesey. I think the two of them, far more often than not, would give you an honest effort. These are two hardworking players, willing to sacrifice the body, willing to go out there, play some blue-collar hockey, do whatever it takes to help the New York Rangers get a win. But the bottom line, this team, this season, it has been a colossal disappointment by just about every possible eye test, every possible stat, every possible metric. And we kind of knew this was coming, right? I mean, we didn't know exactly how it was going to go down. And I mean, I guess you never know for sure. They could have held on to either one or maybe even both these guys through the trade deadline. But it always felt like the three Rangers that were destined to be traded before the trade deadline, as we approach the trade deadline here, were Ryan Lindgren, Jimmy Vesey, Riley Smith. Those are the three skaters that are all UFAs after this season is over. And I get the feeling Riley Smith is probably next. There is a week to go before the deadline. Will he end up playing one or two more games with the Rangers? That's possible, but I do think eventually you'll see him on his way as well. And again, just to run through the trade really quick here one more time, and also get to some of the sort of the fine print of this trade as well. We'll do that real quick, and then I'll give you a couple more thoughts on really this trade from every conceivable angle. Also going to be talking about the players that the Rangers got back from the Colorado Avalanche and whether or not this is a fair deal for the Blue Shirts. But again, it's Lindgren, it's Vesey, it's the rights for Hank Kempf going to the Avalanche for Juuso Parssinen, a center, Calvin DeHaan, a veteran defenseman, and a 2025 conditional second rounder, as well as a 2025 conditional fourth rounders. And also, the Rangers, wondering about those conditions there, the Rangers will get the better of either Carolina's or the Rangers' own second-round pick, which actually the Rangers had traded to Colorado and now comes back to the Rangers. They will get the better of those two picks in the second round. So that's good news as well. The way things stand right now, it certainly looks like it's going to be the Rangers' pick that will be the better of those two. And then for the fourth rounder, they will get the better of Colorado's or Vancouver's fourth-round pick. So good news there. I think overall this is a really solid return for the Rangers. And really, I mean, there's a lot of pieces going back and forth and a lot of assets going back and forth, and I understand that. But I think really the meat and potatoes of this trade was basically Ryan Lindgren for a second rounder. And I mean, no disrespect to any of the other players that are involved here, but clearly you look at this trade, I don't think the Avalanche did this to get Hank Kempf, former seventh-round pick by the Rangers. They wanted Ryan Lindgren. They went out, they got their guy, and the Rangers wanted draft capital, and they got that with a second rounder. The Rangers, before this trade went through, were not going to have a second rounder for any of the next three seasons, and now they'll at least have one. Another little piece of this trade as well, the Rangers will retain exactly half of Ryan Lindgren's cap hit. Even with that being the case, it really doesn't matter at all. It's not going to hurt the Rangers. It's not going to handcuff the Rangers in terms of whatever they want to do between now and the trade deadline. I mean, I'm not looking for them to buy anyway. I just don't think that's going to happen. You might see a couple of minor deals. You might see the Rangers add a depth forward maybe for like a fourth rounder, but I don't think the Rangers are going to give up anything significant in terms of draft capital heading into the trade deadline here. But bottom line, Ryan Lindgren, $4.5 million cap hit coming into this season, and just $2.25 million would represent half of it. That's what the Rangers are left on the hook for. But Ryan Lindgren is a free agent after the season ends, so by that point, it'll all not matter anyway. He'll be on his way, and the Rangers will be free of the entire cap hit. Puckpedia now showing the Rangers with $14 million in cap space after this trade went through. They are projected for more than $16 million at the deadline. So naturally, the 1 year that the Rangers are not in contention, they have a whole boatload of cap space that I don't think they're really going to do a whole lot with. Could be wrong. We'll see. It's possible the Rangers make some trades looking to bring in a player or multiple players who they think can help them more for next year than for this year. That's at least possible. And they do now have the cap space to do that. But just kind of unique, I think, that ended up being the case, that they have this cap space and it doesn't really make sense for them to really use it, heading into the deadline. But for anybody that might be keeping track at home, this is now 6 players that were on the opening night roster for the Rangers. They're now ex-Rangers. Jacob Trouba, Capo Caco, Filipino, Victor Mancini, and now Ryan Lindgren and Jimmy Vesey. That's quite a lot of overturn for a team that won the President's Trophy last year, but obviously things didn't go their way this year, and you got to do what you got to do. You got to make the moves that you feel like you have to make. Drury is retooling this roster on the fly, and overall, I think he's done a good job with it. I think, I like this trade because, again, the meat and potatoes of this is Lindgren for a second rounder. You get a second rounder for Ryan Lindgren. I think you have to feel pretty good about that for sure. There is the human aspect to this as well. Again, I like both players. I feel like, though, if you're a Ranger fan, from the pure business side of things, you should probably be feeling pretty good about this trade. It's one thing if the whole situation is just like sad or depressing. I get that because we all thought, or a lot of us thought, that this team would be back in contention this season. They'd be buying around this team around this time rather than selling. And of course, that, at least thus far, is not the case. The Rangers continue to wheel and deal and continue to move on from guys that have been mainstays on this team and guys that have been a part of a couple of different deep playoff runs, getting close to going to the Stanley Cup final, all that good stuff. So it is what it is. They had to make the move. It bugs me a little bit because I do like both of these players, but I think what bugs me more than anything is just the fact that we're in this situation in the first place where we feel like, yeah, they had to do this. They had to move on from these UFAs. I mean, these were guys that, yeah, they're in the last year of their contract, but they were at one more run together, right? Ryan Lindgren, Jimmy Vesey, even Riley Smith coming in this season. I think he'll be traded too. But these guys were all going to get back into the playoffs and hopefully go on another deep run and maybe make a real run at this thing. And of course, like I said, that has been anything but the case so far this season. So we'll see what happens. When everybody's healthy, you would think that a trade of Jimmy Vesey would open up a roster spot, a spot in the lineup for guys like Brian Othmann. I mean, Othmann's in the lineup right now, but when Kreider gets back, you would hope that now Othmann still gets to stay in the lineup and somebody else is a healthy scratch. And obviously Jimmy Vesey is no longer in the picture. And I think whenever Riley Smith gets traded, which I think might be happening sooner rather than later, I think that'll open up a spot for Brett Berard. Brett Berard was recalled by the Rangers earlier today as well. You might have missed that in the big flurry of everything happening with the Rangers. I think a lot of Ranger fans were upset about the game against Toronto. And then certainly this trade got everybody's attention as well. But the Rangers snuck in a little transaction there. They called up Brett Berard. And my hope is that Othmann and Berard are in this lineup every single game for the rest of the season. And if they make the playoffs, which seems like a long shot, they are selling off pieces. But if they do somehow get in there, I hope these guys are out there for playoff experience as well, because that can go a long way. That could be invaluable for players like Brian Othmann and Brett Berard. But at the very least, let's see them in the lineup for the rest of the regular season. And, as far as, Lindgren, him being traded, how does that affect the lineup? Who's going to take his spot? I would hope that Zach Jones stay in the lineup. I know we've been through this a million times, but Calvin DeHaan is part of this trade, veteran defenseman. I think you'll see him step in there in the next game, obviously in Lindgren's spot. But then what happens when Adam Fox comes back? Who's the odd man out? I get the feeling it'll probably be Zach Jones. It's not what I would do, but we know how coaches defer to the veterans, and I think DeHaan will end up with Jones' spot in the lineup. But we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to talk a little bit more about the players that the Rangers acquired. Obviously, DeHaan, we mentioned him just a second ago, and Parsonen, an intriguing young forward that's played for both Nashville and Colorado. So we will talk about both those players in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that is both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works just as hard as you do. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, let's go keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. A huge shout out to the everydayers, as always, for sticking with this podcast and going through all the ups and downs of what has been a very tumultuous Ranger season this year. In our next couple episodes, they've both been pre-recorded a couple of days ago. One of them was recorded actually a week ago, but we've got an episode about some of my favorite Ranger rentals from over the years, and then also a mailbag episode. So we got those coming for you guys. I will be on vacation for a few days. Then I'll be back, and I will talk about whatever happens at the NHL trade deadline as it pertains to the Rangers. But for right now, to keep the focus on this trade, and specifically what the Rangers got, what the haul was for Lindgren and Vesey. You get 2 draft picks, as we covered. You also get Calvin DeHaan, a veteran NHL defenseman, obviously played for a whole bunch of teams. And you've also got Juuso Parssinen. And again, one of the biggest reasons why I like this trade is it allows the Rangers to restock their draft capital at least a little bit. And they've quietly been doing that this season. Got a couple of draft picks for Jacob Trouba. Draft pick for, I'm trying to remember the exact details now, but I do know the Kakko deal. You bring over Borgen, you get draft picks there as well. And you get 2 draft picks here for Jimmy Vesey and Ryan Lindgren, including a second rounder, which is the best draft pick the Rangers have got in any of their wheelings and dealings this season. I know they also gave away a first rounder to get JT Miller, but JT Miller's a great player. I think that move, like I said, was geared toward next season, and I think you'll see that pay dividends for the Rangers. It's really already paying dividends for the Rangers. JT Miller's been off to a great start. But yeah, I mean, as things stand right now, if you want to run through the gauntlet, Rangers don't have a first rounder next year. They have a second, a third, 2 fourths, a fifth, 2 sixths, and a seventh. And that pretty much covers it as far as the draft picks are concerned and what the Rangers have acquired here. But they also go out and they get 2 players as part of this deal as well. One of them is Juuso Parssinen, and he is a 24-year-old center, 6'3", 212 pounds, quote unquote, built like a tank. I think it was Vince Mercogliano who tweeted that out. But obviously he's got great size. Former 7th round pick by the Nashville Predators in 2019. He went number 210 overall. Obviously he's made it to the NHL. 126 career games. He had 2.5 seasons with Nashville and then 22 games this year with Colorado. So interesting note here is that the Rangers will actually be his 3rd team this season. He was on Nashville, ended up in Colorado. Now he's dealt to the New York Rangers. And in his 126 career NHL games, 18 goals, 30 assists, 48 points, minus 23 in that time. Also 207 hits, so he's a physical player, and 48 block shots. And a couple other notes about Parssinen here. While he was at Nashville, highlight reel goal is one of the first things that comes up if you type his name into YouTube. He had an overtime winner where he went between the legs and roofed it. Just a beautiful goal there. Another note that you might find interesting, he scored his first career goal against the New York Rangers as a member of the Nashville Predators. Somebody that's known for being strong on the puck and difficult to separate from the puck, able to go to the high danger scoring areas. I mean, it's not like he's a scoring machine or anything like that. I think he does project as probably a bottom sixer. But, obviously he's somebody that with his size, he can use that to his advantage. And it sounds like he has done so at various times throughout his NHL career. Also, this is kind of interesting too. Some of you guys might remember that last season, the Rangers are in Nashville, and it was right at the end of one of the periods, I think the first period, and there's a little get-together, a little skirmish between the players. Vincent Trocheck is face-washing a player on the Predators while not even looking at him and just kind of just being Trocheck, basically, just being an agitator. That was Juuso Parssinen. So hopefully the two of them can have a laugh about it and just move forward. I doubt there's any kind of bad blood or lingering animosity from that moment. That was just kind of a funny moment that happened last year. And of course, those two are now teammates. Per Molly Walker, she tweeted this out a little bit earlier tonight. The Rangers have been interested in Parssinen for quite some time. They tried to trade for him at least once when he was on the Nashville Predators, never able to come to an agreement there. So this isn't something the Rangers just fell out of the bed and give us Juuso Parssinen. It wasn't just a random throw-in for this trade either. Clearly they like this guy. They see something that they feel they can work with. Feels like he's a little bit of a pet project, but per Vince Mercogliano, the Rangers apparently see him as a third-line center. So we'll see how it goes. He is making $775,000 per season. He will be an RFA with arbitration rights when this season ends. And again, a little bit of a pet project here, but an intriguing player, nevertheless, still young and does seem to have at least some upside. And if nothing else, you're getting a center with great size. Calvin DeHaan, this name is probably a little bit more familiar to Ranger fans. First of all, he's been in the league for a long time and spent several seasons with the New York Islanders. I had it in my notes somewhere here. I want to say like 6 seasons or so with the Islanders, or at least parts of 6 seasons. But my fear here, I have nothing against Calvin DeHaan, but my fear here is something that I mentioned earlier in the episode. I feel like once Adam Fox gets back, you're going to see Zach Jones once again as the odd man out. Now, of course, we don't know what else is going to happen. Could the Rangers trade Zach Jones? Could the Rangers trade K'Andre Miller? Any of these things are possible. I honestly think it's possible that the Rangers turn around and trade Calvin DeHaan because 33 years old, he's a UFA at the end of the season. The Rangers just traded 2 of their impending UFAs anyway. They don't really have any incentive to hang on to DeHaan through the trade deadline. I don't think there's any chance whatsoever that they re-sign DeHaan at the end of this season. He's getting older, and he's making $800K a season. I mean, maybe that's the one reason you can get him cheap and put him in like a 7th defenseman kind of a role, but I don't see it. I don't think that the Rangers see DeHaan as part of the long-term solution here. I just get the feeling that they felt that they needed a defenseman as a placeholder, and the unlikely event, or seemingly unlikely event, that this team does make the playoffs, at least now you've got another option, another veteran that you could insert into the lineup and try to just do whatever you can, try to make a go of it in the playoffs. But the bottom line, he's kicked around the league for a while. He was the number 12 overall pick all the way back in 2009. Again, now 33 years old, but goes from the Islanders to the Canes, to the Blackhawks, to the Canes again, to the Lightning, and then, of course, this season with the Avalanche, 676 career regular season games, 24 goals, 124 assists, -10. But if we're being honest, I don't think the Rangers really have any grand plans for Calvin DeHaan. Like I said, I think a placeholder is probably the best way to look at him for now. We might as well also go ahead and talk about Hank Kempf. He was the other player that went to Colorado. Not exactly a household name among Ranger fans, but if you follow the prospects closely, you might the name might sound at least a little bit familiar. He is a former 7th-round pick in 2021. He went number 208 overall that season. He is 22 years old, 6'2", 201-pound defenseman. He is in his 4th season at Cornell, and this year, 2 goals, 5 assists, and a +5 in 29 games. So doesn't seem to have a whole ton of upside, but I guess you never know for sure, right? Could be a little bit of a dart throw on Colorado's behalf. But Hank Kempf, of course, goes to Colorado as well. They now have his rights. Again, overall, I like the trade. It stings to say goodbye to these players. It's even worse than the trade itself, worse than saying goodbye to these players. It's just the fact that, again, it's just infuriating that the Rangers let this season spiral out of control the way that they did after having such a good year last year. And this is the position we find ourselves in, where they got to trade off all their UFAs. And it is what it is. They did what they had to do. I think Riley Smith is probably next, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And in just a second, we're going to go ahead and wish a very fond farewell to both Jimmy Vesey and Ryan Lindgren, and talk a little bit about some of their better moments as members of the New York Rangers. We will get to that in just a second. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling on Locked On New York Rangers. Let's go ahead and wrap up with this. Once again, talking about Ryan Lindgren and Jimmy Vesey. Like I said, I just want to wish the best to both of these players. Again, they played a hard-nosed style. I think more so than a lot of guys on this roster. They're giving you an honest effort every single night. Lindgren, bottom line, one of my favorite players of this Ranger era. Even I'll admit, clearly his game slipped this season. I think that's more due to the fact that he's just taken a beating over the years than it is due to the fact that, he doesn't care or isn't giving you any effort out there. I don't think that that's true at all. I think that, things have just kind of fallen apart quickly on him this season. And that's obviously unfortunate. But obviously Lindgren was given the Warrior nickname. And we'll actually talk about Lindgren in just a second. We'll end with Lindgren. Let's talk about Vesey for a minute. Again, 2 stints with the Rangers and just scored the 100th goal of his NHL career. 78 of those goals have been scored with the New York Rangers. Is a big goal too. Look, if the Rangers get into the playoffs, which I try not to laugh too much. I know things don't look good right now, but let's just say they squeak in. If they get in by like a point, I mean, that's part of it, right? That goal that he scored against the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Rangers were down in that game in the third period, just playing a god-awful hockey game, and Jimmy Vesey got them back into it. Right after Pittsburgh took the lead, he went back the other way. He scored a goal, got them back into it. And that was goal number 100 for Jimmy Vesey. Happy that he got that milestone as a member of the Rangers. And, of course, the Rangers went on to win that game. But, yeah, I mean, Vesey, gritty player, penalty killer, capable of playing up in the lineup every now and then if you need it. And give him props, man. He came in on a PTO a couple of seasons ago. And I think when that happened, a lot of us were kind of thinking like, Jimmy Vesey, like, okay, I guess, we'll give it a shot here. Nobody was even convinced that he was going to make the Rangers. And hey, he got 2.5 years as a New York Ranger out of the deal. He made it on his PTO and then signed that 2-year extension and would have been here. You got to think through the rest of this contract that the Rangers, frankly, just weren't bad this season. So he's on his way to Colorado. As for Ryan Lindgren, I mean, some of his biggest moments, one of the first ones that popped into my head was a couple of years ago, 2021, 2022, the game against the Buffalo Sabres, wild back and forth game in the Garden, 4-4 late in the game, final seconds ticking off. The puck is in Buffalo's zone, pinned along the boards. The Rangers out of nowhere get it loose. 3 lightning quick passes. We've got Mika passing over to Ryan Lindgren. Lindgren buries it from the doorstep. And what was so cool about that, and one of my favorite aspects of that play, is that Lindgren was creeping in toward the net. There was nobody back for the Rangers, but there didn't need to be because the clock was about to run out. There was no way that Buffalo would have had enough time to go the other way and get any kind of a scoring chance. Lindgren recognized that, creeped in toward the net, and obviously it paid off handsomely with the game-tying goal with 0.4 seconds remaining. So that was awesome. There's a goal that he scored in the playoffs in that same season, 2021-2022, that could have been absolutely enormous. Unfortunately, the Rangers ended up losing the game. It's Game 5 against Tampa. The game is scoreless past the midway point of the second period. You've got a situation where Barclay Goodrow and Tyler Mott both apply pressure on the forecheck. What a concept, right? 2 forechecking forwards on this play. And the Lightning defenseman, he's in the corner. They're bearing down on him. He throws the puck around to the other side of the net. Lindgren comes up the left side, picks it up, takes a shot from a really sharp angle there, and gets it past Vasilevsky and into the net. Gave the Rangers a 1-0 lead. Like I said, unfortunately, the Rangers were not able to hold that lead, lost 2-1, and then, of course, lost the series as well. And then, of course, I think a big moment for Lindgren wasn't during an actual game. It was before a game, winning the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award. His son Connor was out there and really put Lindgren over big, described him as the heart and soul of the New York Rangers. That was 2 seasons ago when Lindgren won the award. And I think that award really means a lot to players. I'm sure it meant a lot to Ryan Lindgren to be recognized in that way. But, I think with Lindgren, more so than like individual plays, what we're going to remember more than anything else is probably just the style of play, the hard-nosed style, all these collisions, all these hits, all these blocked shots, all this blood spilled on the ice. This preseason, he may have really cost himself with what he did, but he stood up for a teammate, and he's not going to not do that. Filipino took a hit, awkward collision at center ice. Lindgren knows Filipino's history, saw his guy down, jumped in there, got into a fight, broke his jaw or whatever it was, missed a whole bunch of time, comes back with the fishbowl on his head. I don't think that missing those games and having to wear that abomination of a helmet really did Ryan Lindgren any favors this season. That just got everything off to a rough start, but he's going to stand up for his teammate because that's Ryan Lindgren. And I think that's the kind of stuff that we'll remember most about him and why I think he probably will be a fondly remembered Ranger. I think there's a chance that at least among some fans, not all, but some, they're going to look at what he did this year. And obviously his play did slip this year. I don't think that can really be debated. But they're just going to remember this. And, oh, Ryan Lindgren was so bad. No, he wasn't. Ryan Lindgren was a very important heart and soul member of this team for a long time. Critical part of a couple of deep playoff runs. Yeah, he got the benefit of playing with Adam Fox, but he took advantage of it, right? He took the ball and ran with it, was his defense partner for pretty much his entire Ranger tenure. And obviously, a team in the conference final 2 out of 3 years, you can't really hide your top pair defensemen, and he was one of them, and obviously a big part of that. So good stuff for Ryan Lindgren. Great Ranger tenure. Came over as part of the Rick Nash deal. We absolutely stole Ryan Lindgren from the Boston Bruins, but now he moves on. And as far as Lindgren and Vesey go, I mean, seems like a decent landing spot with the Colorado Avalanche. They're comfortably in a playoff position right now. These guys will be back in the playoffs. And, I mean, Colorado won the Stanley Cup a couple of seasons ago. Got to figure they're at least capable of making a run this season. We'll see how it goes. But, yeah, good landing spot. And at least they're not in the Eastern Conference. And we can't be victimized by them later this season because the Rangers and Avalanche do not play each other again this season. So, again, all the best of those two players. Feel free in the YouTube comment section to leave your favorite memories of Vesey and Lindgren being on this team, or, you know, just your thoughts on the trade itself. You know, do you think the return was fair? Did the Rangers do well? Did they not do so well? Let me know, and definitely feel free to share your thoughts. But we'll call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.